And then once it hits this, we're officially live. And what I think is kind of a good thing to do to get us officially started. You can say, wave the camera. Hi, mom. Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Good to see you. And yeah, you can hear us outside. You can hear us inside. And here we are. I think podcast number 5 or 6. And again, good day, losing count.
Yeah.
Excited to be here in our hot mic. Let's talk podcast booth.
Love it.
Wildfire Wednesday, Tech Talk Tuesday, all things IFC podcast studio. Eric, it's great to be here. And Chief Mark Niemeyer, is that right?
You got
Okay,
it.
good. I didn't butcher it. I thought I was butchering it. Kevin Sobin here with the IFC Tech Council. Excited to be here. So Eric, quick intro, and then Mark will throw it to you.
Yeah. Eric Litzenberg is my name. We know each other well. And I'm sure we'll tell stories at some point over the next little bit about standing on a canyon overlooking some houses in paradise.
Yes, sir.
I came from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'm now the Wildland Fire Advisor for IFC. So Chief Niemeyer, getting to you, give us an introduction to yourself, which includes where you've come from and how you got to be where you are now. A little bit longer than what Kevin and I just did. Yeah.
Crazy pathway. And I think I did another podcast and they were asking me about my pathway through the fire service, and it wasn't fire. Shocking, right? So I was the EMS guy, went to college, Central Washington University, paramedic program, get done, and I just take off with the medicine stuff, and I loved it. Tested for a while for the fire department, and you typically have to test 10, 15 times unless you're lucky. You're the unicorn that tests once and you get it. But I just stayed on that medicine pathway. It was intriguing, very much like firefighting. It was a different call every day. And so I just loved it. Worked my way through leadership and all that. On the EMS side, and then a deputy chief spot opened up in Meridian, Idaho, with the Meridian Fire Department as deputy chief EMS. Got pushed a little bit here and there, and you should do that and take that over to the fire side. And I did. Was loving life as a deputy chief. I mean, who doesn't, right? Number 2 in command, you don't have to worry about being the top dog and all the pressure that comes with that. Fire chief abruptly resigned, whatever the story was. And I wasn't going to apply. The fire chief job was not in my trajectory. It wasn't on the bullet list of things to do, the bucket list. Union pushed me a little bit to say you should consider applying. And then it was my wife, of all people, that quite honestly said, if you don't apply and try, you don't get to come home and complain, right? You don't get to complain about whoever they choose.
Yeah.
Dang it. Well, I'll try then. And I did. And it was kind of an interesting journey. I was 41 years old at the time. I'd say this all the time. Probably had no business becoming a fire chief that young. Still had things to learn. But the mayor selected me, and I was kind of shocked because the other 2 finalists were well-known names in the fire service. I mean, I was fairly new over to the fire side. I'd been a deputy chief at that point for about 2.5, 3 years. And I thought, there's no way in heck that I'm going to get this job. And the mayor selected me. I remember asking her, why? Why did you select me for this job when you could have selected 2 incredible candidates that had a wealth of knowledge and experience already doing the job? And she said, you're the only one out of 3 that presented an actual vision for the organization. So I kind of learned something through that. As a leader, having that vision, understanding how and why you want to share that vision was super important. And I was there 10 years, loved my time in Meridian. Again, not looking to take another job. The Boise job opened up. I thought about applying, but there was some residency stuff that went on. I'm a country kid, so the hat is kind of real. I'm not a cowboy.
Yeah.
I'm a country kid at heart. And I didn't apply. And I was on a panel that interviewed the final 2 candidates there for the Boise job. I went and got shoulder surgery after that. And I was 1 day removed from shoulder surgery. So I was a little bit on some pain medication. I'll just leave it at that. Wasn't thinking clearly. And the mayor of Boise reached out to me via text. I'd never met the mayor before in my life. Reached out and said, can we talk? I got the number from your current mayor. And I said, well, sure. And I remember before she called, I looked at my wife. I was sitting on the couch with all these, morphine lines in my shoulder and all kinds of good stuff. And I looked at Cheryl and I said, please don't let me say anything stupid. I've never met the mayor of Boise before. Don't let me do that. So the mayor called. We talked about the candidates. She wanted to know, why did I select A over B, the whole 2 yards. And I got to the end and she said, well, I'm meeting them tonight. I don't know if I feel a connection yet, but we'll see how tonight goes. And I said, well, good luck to you, Mayor. And I hung up on her, literally hung up on her. And it took me about 2 minutes in my state that I was in. And I looked at my wife and I said, that was the dumb thing I asked you not to let me do. Long story short, she called the next day. She said, I keep hearing your name. It just seems like you're the right person for this job. So that's how it happened.
That's quite flattering, right? That's neat.
I think initially some shock, and then, making sure I took the time. I said, well, how about we talk over the weekend? Because quite honestly, you don't know me and I don't know you. And we need to make sure visions and all of that align. So we spent the weekend and it became pretty clear to me that where she wanted to see the fire department go is right up my alley of things that I care about, that I'm passionate about. So that was a pretty easy decision. The confirmation process was a little bit odd, because I wasn't the candidate, I wasn't the applicant.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden the mayor saying, there's my guy, we're bringing him in. And so the council had some questions, the union certainly had some questions, but we worked through it and it's been great. I can honestly say this, as good as I've had it throughout my whole career, the last 5 years of Boise Fire has been just the most rewarding, probably because I've learned a lot of things along the way and
That's great.
what not to do and what to do.
I'm just thinking through this right now. This is not a theory I've put on paper, but it really,
Interested, though.
yeah, I feel like in recent years, I have seen a number of who I consider to be great leaders like yourself, who have been pushed into the position by something or by somebody, haven't been the ones jumping up and down and saying, I need to be the next.
Yeah.
It's taken a push from the people around those leaders to say, you know what, you're really good at what you do and you got it.
Yeah.
And there's a nudge. I think somebody needs to do some research on that. Like
That's right up that alley. I was doing a podcast with Alex Collins, Ready Rebound, and my good buddy Brian Fennessy was doing. One of the things I said on that, and it just was on the cuff. Sometimes you don't call the mission calls you. Right?
Yeah.
When you're least expecting it, the mission just calls you. And
Yeah.
are you ready? And I've kind of used that even with my own department as I talk to captains that are not ready to be battalion chiefs. I said, maybe it's not your time, maybe it's the mission's time. You just got to be ready for that.
Great way to put
me
it.
What leadership is.
Yeah, you might have written books already. I don't think you have, but when you do, you've got the title.
The mission calls you, and it's not ChatGPT for
Right?
the rest of
This
it.
is good, man. This is good.
But so with your time in Boise now, and as the mission has called you, and this is different than the question that Eric will finish with, but what have been some highlights and you talked about some of the lessons learned throughout the way, but as far as whether it's some of the prevention side or some of the team management side, or just kind of general, what are maybe a couple of bullet points that you can lean into that again, just from your time in Boise that you could share with us?
I think probably the biggest thing I'm proud of in my time with Boise, and it does take the team, it takes the group effort to do this. So it's not relying on one person, but I think a leader does set the tone. I'm super proud of our culture. Right? As the largest fire department in the state of Idaho, you can get wrapped up in your own mind a little bit about who we are. Right? We're the biggest, we're the baddest. And there was a little bit of that going on over the years, not terrible. I don't want to disparage the prior folks that worked there, but there was a little bit of that. And I think I brought a different twist to that and a different spin. But to do that, you have to ingrain throughout the culture, the mission. I talk all the time about mission centered. I know Fennessy does as well, mission centered organizations. And the other thing I think I brought was, and again, it's a buzzword, I know, but servant leadership. And what we talk about in our fire department that has permeated down, it's been really fun to watch. As the leader, as the fire chief, I serve you. We say that all the time. You don't serve, we all know bugles, right? When things hit the fan, we know the bugles, we know the hierarchy. Everybody knows that, including our newest firefighter. But we talk about a lot is I serve you. We have a mantra, the higher you go, the more you owe. And we live by that mantra, meaning the higher you go, the more you owe the people that you are serving. And for the very rigorous militaristic leaders, that's a hard concept sometimes, because no, that's not the way it works. They serve up and we're in charge, we're in control. And I've argued that if you truly serve people the way they should be served, they know you're there for them. They know you got your back. You're working hard to bring things. They will work their arses off. I don't know if I can say the other word. So I'll
Sure will, and you can.
Okay. All right. Good.
You are
I can
PG-13.
be legit. All right. PG-13.
The 13 is the key.
Yeah.
Every now and then we go.
But they will work their butts off if they know you truly care about them and you've got their back. And I think to me that books aside, servant leadership, that's what it is. And when they know that you're willing to serve them and they don't expect you, they will serve.
Yeah. So with that culture and that, I think that is such a great leadership lesson. And I'm really interested in the answer to this in the wildland space, but you can answer it anyway.
Sure.
What is it that Boise Fire is doing really well?
I think this is going to sound really vague. We are allowing people to be excellent. And that sounds weird and vague, but this idea of you have passion as an individual, as a company officer, as a crew, giving them permission to go be excellent, not being bound up by policies. You know, policies are there for a reason, but they're also there to be broken every day. They're there to be pushed to a boundary. And as long as the men and women are doing the right things for the right reason in serving our community, that's ultimately why we're there. You're giving them permission. And what I've watched happen is when everybody has permission to excel, you just watch it happen. It's beautiful as a leader just to sit back and watch. And the men and women are taking on things that we weren't doing before. Our Ignite Women's Boot Camp, good example. Firefighter came to me and said, I would love to start putting on a boot camp that focuses on women, where we just bring women from the community in. We run it, and others do this, right? We're not alone in what we're doing. But that's the idea of allowing people to be creative in their mindset and not squashing their idea day one, which leaders typically do, fire chiefs, right? Can't afford it. Yes, you can. Go find the damn money, right? There's money out there. There's lots of money out there. Go find it. If it's important enough to a firefighter to say this could work. And what we've seen is recruitment of female firefighters go through the roof compared to where we were. That's just one example. The wildfire space, we're doing a lot of really cool mitigation work. I talk to Dave Winokur all the time. He's got a great product now, Xyloplan, that's going to help us be better. We were doing work and we thought we were really cool. We were doing chip programs and slope mowing and all this kind of stuff. We've got now somebody saying we need to bring this in so we can actually know where to go mitigate for the biggest bang for the buck and take care of subdivisions. And I just love that creative thinking, but that's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
It can't just be one or two people. It's got to be the organization. And I know we're on track. We do an annual survey every year, right? And when I first got there, you know, the satisfaction was wherever it was, 67%, 68, whatever it was. And we got this last one, which would be the last one I ever do as a fire chief. And we got it, and I think it was 86% satisfaction. I thought, oh no, we've gone backwards, right? Because usually when it's that high, there's some issue. Guys and gals are pissed off about something.
Yeah.
Like, oh no. So I get it. And then we also did this subsequent thing with that, and it's called the National, I cannot remember the name of it. It's the first time I've ever seen it. National Promoter Score, and I think NPS is what. And basically, it looks at all the responses in a survey. Said how many people are actively promoting the vision that has been laid out. I thought, oh, this is cool. And so I looked, and it was like 68 or 72%, something like that. I didn't know what it meant. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a D, isn't it? 68% D plus, maybe. And then I talked to some folks and like, no, that is an incredibly high score of people in the organization, leaders, captains, engineers, battalion chiefs that are out promoting the vision of this. I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
That is cool.
And so, you know, I often say winning breeds winning, losing breeds losing. You know, you've heard coaches say that, right?
Yeah.
It's Vince Lombardi or others. And it's really true. If you can build that culture to where everybody feels like we're winning today, it'll just continue to breed winning. And you don't let the noise come in. That's what causes losing, all the external noise of stuff. We just stay mission centered, and I love it. I'm rambling here, but I think it's, you know, you asked me about what I'm most proud of, and that's it. Because if you have good culture, everything else can happen, right? But if you don't have good culture, it's hard.
Yeah, there's so much special sauce in that, as it were, because you know, you talked about how you're enabling people. That's more difficult than people know, because as the leader of the organization, when you enable, you accept whatever doesn't go right as yours.
A lot of trust.
It is a ton of trust. And I think it takes a lot from your folks too, because they have to be able, you know, willing to hand you and the organization their baby, as it were, and say, let's try to foster this and grow it.
Yeah.
That's huge. And you were talking about the Women Ignite or whatever you were calling. I mean, this is true special sauce. Departments are really struggling with making sure we're getting in diverse workforce, and recruiting is one thing, but actually getting them to come in and work for you after that recruitment, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
That's pretty magic.
Yeah. And I think that the challenge that, you know, I've had a lot of chiefs as I go out and visit states and do presentations, and they'll say, Chief, you know, what's your biggest challenge? You know, we're engaging. They say, I need to hire more women. Blanket statement like that. And my first question to them is, your culture ready for that? That's a really good question that a fire chief needs to ask. So instead of just saying, I need to do this, what does your culture of the organization look like? So that when you bring anybody in, it doesn't matter, gender, race, any of that, the culture is just ready for anything, because they're people that are going to serve a mission and they want to go just kick butt, right? Like the rest of us. And I think that's really important, that culture piece. That's why I'm so focused on culture all the time, because it even goes to recruitment, retention. The culture's not right, those challenges come about, but you got to to your point, Eric, you've got to let go a little bit as a leader and say, I'm going to trust all my leadership to go send this message and then make it happen. And then you do, it's fun.
Yeah. And that's a neat score you talk about.
Yeah.
That talks about essentially how much are people truly buying into the
Right.
mission
Right.
of your organization. That's one that's worth measuring for
Yeah.
anybody. That's
Pretty
like
cool.
what people try to get to.
It was a whole new twist on an employee survey that I've
Yeah.
never seen before. And our folks came up with it. You know, they didn't come up with the system, universities use it, but they on their own incorporated it into our final report. And I remember when I first looked, I'm, what is this? I've never seen this.
That's
before.
really cool.
And they explained it to me. I'm like, oh, I like it.
Your
Sweet.
people found a pretty good score, man.
Yeah.
I want to learn more about it. All right. So you had talked about evolution of your career and opportunities, and you mentioned briefly that you're taking a next one on. The next one is with Western Fire Chiefs.
Yeah,
So tell us about that. What's happening?
Yeah,
with
super
that?
excited. You know, I really didn't know what the Western was as a fire chief early on. And then working within the Idaho Fire Chiefs, just like most divisions, probably every state has a representative that goes and serves on the broader divisional board. And so I was asked to run for that. I did. I got it. And I started joining the Western. That's when I really first met in depth Jeff Johnson. I had known who he was, certainly, but I got to meet him and I got to see a different side of the fire service. I got to see a side that thought a little bit more entrepreneurial, that recognized what the issues were and how do we go tackle the issues? How do we go get after them? And so I was happy on the board. I was asked to run for vice president. I did, and then that turned into president. I've been the board president for the last 3 years, and I just resigned today in front of our
Seems like there's a
divisional
theme of
lunch.
you being stuff.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about.
Yes, and then you know, Jeff has a way of kind of volunteers you to do things. So he called me about 3 years ago, asked to put my wife on speakerphone, and I knew I was in trouble when he did that. He said, "Hey, I really think you should be the next CEO of our organization. You know, I'm getting ready to step down." And I was honored, certainly. I was a little bit apprehensive because you never want to follow a legend. That's a hard thing to do. But I got comfortable in my own skin with that. And so I'm now moving into the CEO role of the Western Fire Chiefs. So super excited about that. There's a
Kudos.
lot of good stuff going.
Yeah. What do you think, if you were to project out a few years, what are the things that you're going to accomplish now
Yeah,
and into the
love it,
future?
love it.
I
I
just
just-
add on to that question of like, what
Sure.
do you, not only to accomplish, but what do you think are the priorities, especially in the changing landscape of
Yep.
literally the physical landscape and then the political landscape and everything, it's
Yeah.
all changing, but where does Western Fire Chiefs fit into, fit into this mold and what
Yeah.
are the priorities that you?
It's a great time to ask this question because I just got done articulating this at our divisional luncheon, you know, where we're headed. And we have been saying that the Western Fire Chiefs, you know, I think you need to know what you're good at, right? What we are not good at are things that we don't experience, hurricanes and other things. We just don't in the West. What we do experience is wildfire. So if you look at the legs of our stool, our divisional stool, it used to be 3, we added a 4th because I think we need to prioritize the 4th one. So wildfire is a priority, all things wildfire, but more specifically, we know about the executive order. We've talked about it ad nauseum. We know there's some changes potentially in the federal landscape. We want to make sure we at least have a voice at the table to say how that looks, because I think and I know, Eric, you know this, we see some of the challenges in the current response model. And yet you look at a good fire department that runs so efficiently, you're like, why don't we kind of mirror that? It looks pretty good, doesn't it? So wildfire is a big one. The insurance non-renewal issue in the West, and I know it's not just the West. Colorado's facing it, New Mexico's facing it. But the insurance non-renewal is a big deal that we want to have better outcomes for. And to do that, you have to get fire chiefs and fire departments to understand land management a little bit better. I've said that to a few fire chiefs, like, hey, in your resume or in your duties, this is other duties as assigned, you got to know land management a little bit better. And they kind of look at me sideways. And then I have to say simple words like mitigation of the landscape. And how do we do that effectively to change the outcome? So wildfire is certainly a leg of our stool. Technology, we've always been pretty technology focused, and it's not just current, but emerging. And how do we help shape the future of technology? The really exciting thing that we're discussing and working on now is a public safety cloud. It is truly a centralized place where we, the fire service, are helping build the schemas for the technology vendors of the future, right? And how does that help the fire departments? Here's how it helps. Right now, you join a new technology, I'll keep names out of it, and they want to charge you $80,000. It's a great tech, but it's 80 grand. It's a lot of money. Part of the reason it costs 80,000 is they have to take all of our bad data and they have to normalize it. Well, how about if we normalize the schemas on the front end? So now all they need to build is the interfaces and the pathways to get the data from one place to another without deviation of data standards, right? So I'm geeking out a little bit.
Sounds very logical.
This guy
Sure.
gets you.
Well, okay. So technology is a big deal for us. I think, we are always looking for who we can partner with and support because you are doing it right. And that includes data sharing. There's still companies out there that they want to own the data, even though you as a department are paying them to produce this data. And that's wrong. It's got to stop. The third leg of our stool is leadership development. We do things like our Ignite conference, our Force conference, where we're really bringing in great keynote speakers and great excitement and energy in a very small, intimate setting. So those emerging leaders can learn from somebody. I've said this for a while, and I've had this experience, maybe you have as well, Eric. We shouldn't be learning from the bad fire service leaders to shape our careers. Right? And so many of us do. At some point in our career, you had a bad leader and you said, I'm never going to do that. Well, how about we learn from leaders that you say, I just want to be like that and make it better. So that's really what some of our leadership development programs are, is let's bring in great leaders to learn from. So we build the next generation of fire service leaders and they're learning from the good ones. And then the fourth one that I know the IFC is heavily involved with as well is just health and wellness, but with a little bit of a twist. And I remember talking to Sarah Janke about this. She was a presenter at Ignite. It's great that we're all focusing on firefighter health and wellness, as we should. We have an obligation as leaders to do that. But we got to focus on us. I have talked to too many fire chiefs, chief officers that have retired. They're alcoholics. They're contemplating suicide. They're getting divorced. They don't know where to go next because they had no pathway and mentorship to get there. So we need to bring a focus to chief officers so that we all retire healthy, that we can help continue to give back to the fire service and not be bitter. And we just haven't focused on that. And so it's a little bit of our turn in that as well.
Nice.
That's the four legs.
And you said the fourth one, the health and wellness bit, is a new leg for
Yeah.
Western. I mean, we've been doing it.
We've been doing it. We kind of put that leg into the professional development leg. I'm like, no, that's its own, right? So instead of a three-legged stool, let's make it four. It's a little more stable.
Yeah. So for those folks who have been, and I guess this is to benefit all of us, but a lot of the folks listening are government leaders.
Right.
And now you're moving into an NGO. You're moving into a group that is different than government.
Yeah.
How are you seeing that's going to play out? What opportunity does it provide to you, and maybe what difference is it going to make, and how you can influence?
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. I've 32 years in public safety, and it's time to take the uniform off, let the next generation come in. But moving into a CEO role for the Western allows me to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. I learned some of this from Jeff. Take the government handcuffs off just a little bit to go think even more creatively and just have less boundaries to be in that creative space that can help move the fire service forward and help our membership, but in ways that as a fire chief, government, you really can't do. I think political action is going to be a little bit funner.
Bad. We'll go with it. It's an afternoon, man.
English,
It's an afternoon.
English is all our second language.
This is water, I promise you.
Yes.
So a little bit more political action that'll be a little bit more exciting, so you don't have to worry about political boundaries so much. So just things that as a fire chief you don't always get to experience. And I get to go into that role and experience that.
It is
You
exciting.
mentioned being more entrepreneurial in this role, and I'm curious as maybe your call to industry. I mean, you mentioned some of the data governance and structure, and that is kind of a total whole topic, and maybe you want to touch on that. But when thinking of these various startups that are out there that are, whether they're in the wearables game, whether they're in this satellites or drones, I mean, there's a lot of these exciting different technology pieces that are coming to life. But there's so much that goes into it of, okay, well, what does it do? What value is it bringing? How do we fund it? How do we sustain it? There's all these variables. What is your message to industry? And then ultimately, how would you ask them to collaborate with you as you continue to drive what Western?
It's a great question. I think what I've been telling technology folks that come to me, and some come to me with new ideas, some are already in the space. Listen to us first and foremost. Before you build your product thinking you know what we need, come and talk to us. Build focus groups. We did something pretty cool in the Western, the Crucible, where we allowed new and emerging tech to come in. We had some SMEs in the room. They paid us a small fee to put it together, and we just gave them honest feedback. That's good. That's bad. Your business model's terrible, whatever. Because what I see a lot of times with new emerging tech is they build it and they have one pricing structure, right, for this big, massive database thing that they built. And I'm like, that's perfect for the metros. You know who's not going to buy it? Suburban departments, rural departments, but yet they still need your thing. So how do we help them set a pricing structure that makes sense so that they're usually not thinking that way? The other one is make sure you're building your tech where the data ownership lives with the department that's paying for it. So we're sending that message, which hasn't been heard. And then really pushing back on pricing. And that's where I'm trying to get fire chiefs to really think differently. Instead of accepting that a portable radio costs $12,500, go tell your vendor, whoever it is, you're not paying it. Work harder, right, to get my business. And in government, sometimes you ask me about that kind of dynamic of government, now non-government. I think in government, sometimes we just accept, well, it costs $12,500. Fire engine costs 1.1 million. No, let's go do something about that. Because I think they're wanting it as well. They feel that pressure. I mean, they're not going to on their own say, hey, we'll lower the price to make it better for you. But if we push back and really force that a little bit, I think that's a good thing for the fire service. That's what we should be doing. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little bit of a detour here.
Sure.
And in no way is this meant to make you uncomfortable. It puts you in. So, please don't answer. Right.
Come on.
So you had mentioned political action, and I know, thankfully you're probably, because you're known as somebody who shoots straight, you've been asked to, I guess I'll describe it as ground truth, a lot of the legislation, executive orders that are coming into what most of us see as a consolidation of the federal wildland workforces. In general, what's the state of affairs with that? What do you think is going to happen? And I know it's a hard one to project, but just a semi-involved view, where do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think it's going to go where the president said it needs to go. I mean, an executive order, I remember I was talking to Kristen Sleeper about this over breakfast. It's pretty clear to me that the president, whether people agree with it or not, so this is not a political statement, but the president said within the next 90 days, X shall happen. Within 180 days, X shall happen. I'm thinking, I know my boss, right, the mayor currently, if the mayor came and said, Chief, I expect you to do this in 30 days. I may push back and debate. But at the end of the day, if she says, no, thanks for the debate, we're done.
You got 30 days.
30 days. I have a choice. Get that done in 30 days or look for probably a new line of work. So I would expect that the EO is written in some form or fashion is going to get executed. I think the passion that we all have and so many people have around this executive order is we've seen some of the deficiencies. We know what they are. I think the Forest Service knows what they are. BLM knows what they are. I mean, they see them. We have an opportunity to improve. And in one of the conversations I had with Deputy Secretary McGregor, that was the mindset, is we can improve things. Now, there's a risk in it, especially with the timelines that there are within the executive order. But what I appreciate, I think, about the leadership that's in place at the federal level, the state level, the local level, let's go try. And if it doesn't work, then let's try something different. We'll continue to make improvements to it. So many people want the perfection out of the gate. That's really not the way it works. We're going to make mistakes. There will be mistakes made in this, whatever it looks like in the end. I do hope what it looks like in the end is a consolidated wildland fire service. I really do. And what I hope it also looks like in the end is that you have a seat at the table for local and state representation to have a voice, the foresters as well, to truly have a collaborative effort in the wildfire space moving forward, not independent things happening. And I think if we do that, we bring all of our collective experiences to the table and we can build something incredible. That's the opportunity in front of us. And I think that's what excites so many people involved in this work, that the opportunity is incredible.
Yeah, that's great. That
Seize
is
the moment.
No, seize the moment. It makes me actually think back to one of your early answers where you said your wife had essentially said, you don't have to do this, but you don't have the right to complain about it if you don't, Jim. And this is the same sort of space. Look, we're either going to make this move or we're going to keep things the way they are. And pretty much all of us have been saying it's not quite right the way it is.
Right.
So we either be part of the change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy
Or we
to
don't
sit-
reserve
it's
the
easy to
right.
sit and complain and bitch about everything being messed up, but. at the
Did
same
that
time-
go to the R-rated? Is that what
You're still right at
Okay,
the.
all right.
the-
Trying to learn the threshold here real
Taking the
quick.
threshold. Because I
Rebel.
a lot of these people that ultimately are just sitting there complaining and point all the
Right.
things that are wrong about it, but to, again, leading to some of your leadership comments, well, it's like, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah,
You're just gonna sit there?
present some action that can be considered. And I think it's really important. I mean, obviously here at FRI, we're all local fire chiefs, right? We probably have a few state representatives here. I know the Oregon State Fire Marshal's here. But we also have to remember that the executive order is really driven to federal agencies, even though there's some local language in it. So I think we need to remember that and say we need to continue to partner with our federal agencies to offer our help. And I've had to put my shoes on in their shoes a little bit because I am in the backyard of this, as you know.
Right.
So I've got Grant Beebe, who we work so well with locally, Chris Wilcox over at NPS, Shane McDonald. I'm trying to also see it from their lens of, hey, we're the Fed agencies. We've been tasked with fixing a federal problem. So it's in the nature to say, let's go fix the problem. with the Fed folks. And I think that's why we're pushing so hard to say, let us have a seat at the table. Right? We'll help with that, at least from a different perspective. And I think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
I really do. It's going to take time, probably not as quickly as a lot of us want it to happen, but I do believe we have good relationships being built. And you have to start with those, with the relationships, to then go do the work. And I think we're good.
Yeah, and it seems like in this creation phase, you've helped us have a seat at the table. So why wouldn't it probably
Yeah,
continue?
I tell Chief Hennessy this all the time because working in Meridian for 10 years, the only exposure I had to really a lot of the wildfire challenges was through the Western. That's where you and I first met. We got that story. But I was still on the periphery of the wildfire. We had Type 6 wildfire engines. We deployed here and there under EMAC. And when I took the Boise job, I knew I was going to have to immerse myself in learning about wildfire. So it was kind of fun for me because it was a space I hadn't been in. So I just dove deep into everything wildfire, knowing we have an urban interface that is very volatile. And so it was through a lot of that. But I look at some of the others that are involved in these conversations, whether it's Dan Muncie, Chief Fennessy. I mean, there's a number of individuals. I'm thinking, what am I doing in this group? I had Brian tell me, I think you're in this group because you bring people together. You don't have to be the expert. And I think that's good. That's a good reminder for fire chiefs. You do not have to be the expert in everything, but you have to have the knowledge and you have to be willing to learn and bring people together.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it funny how we all have a bit of an imposter syndrome somewhere?
Totally.
Yeah.
I was asking for a presentation tomorrow and I feel complete imposter syndrome. I give it my best.
I've felt the same way about fantasy as I do about Nehemiah right now, where I am in such admiration. And when they say, what am I doing? I was like, I've said the same thing, man. We're more alike than I thought.
Yeah.
It is really neat to hear, though.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, I'm going to give a different spin on my final question before I jump there.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on I definitely have a technology lens and all this, and you talked about what vendors can consider for Western fire chiefs, but maybe just kind of a little, I enjoy your ramble earlier, but is there a technology right now when looking at the wildland space, and obviously that being kind of a key focus that really catches your attention, something that whether it's right now or you think like, man, this is something that we really need to focus some time on. Of course, there's a lot of talk and a lot of value and perceived value of the use of satellites, these drones, everything going with FRIs, whether it's drones, satellites, or something. What's something right now that's like really catching your attention, you're excited?
Probably two that really have my attention right now. One is a product called Xyloplan, and our friend Dave Winokur was really instrumental in building this. And I've seen a lot of mitigation software platforms in the past, and they're okay. Dave is taking it to the next level to really show fire flow pathways. You can change things like RH factors and everything else within it, so you understand how wind would affect our fire. And if you look at the fires that we're presenting on Friday to a group, we had Paradise, California, where you and I first met. We had the Maui County fires. We had the LA fires, which I know Dr. Lori and Chief Novak were talking about a little bit. Those are all wind-driven fires that are creating conflagration, right? So how do we understand wind in our subdivisions, in our communities, to then understand where to mitigate? So I'm really intrigued by Xyloplan. The other one is Earthfire Alliance. There's a lot of satellites being launched. Aurora Tech's doing a great job as well. Earthfire Alliance is looking to be a nonprofit and feed that data and information for no cost to the fire service. And I think that's a very intriguing partnership potential that we all need to look at and have. And so I think probably those two are the most intriguing. It doesn't mean there's a lot of great software out there, technology out there in the wildfire space. BurnBot's another one that's very intriguing. There's a lot of stuff, but I think those are probably the two that I'm paying the most attention to right now.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and you already said it in response to a different question, but the work that Western is doing on decision modeling too, it's a massive change in our business.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty fantastic technology.
It's one I had to really get my mind around. Bob Roper, Bob's the godfather for a reason. But we got into this space with NASA about decision-making tools and how do you navigate decision-making. And my dumb kind of country brain, I'm like, wait a second. I'm thinking that from an IC perspective. You're not going to tell me how to make decisions. I'm an IC. But as I watched this play out and the work they did, I'm like, that is very impressive to create modeling on better decision-making. And no different on the structural side. Our guys maybe get however many fires, whatever your community is. Let's say you get 20 great structure fires a year. There's a lot that can go in between that we can learn from. So I think the decision-making on that NASA grant has been really impressive to watch.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So Under normal circumstances, I would ask, what are you most proud? And you sort of built it into an answer, and I'll paraphrase and saying a mission-driven culture
Yeah.
and the culture of your organization, which is solid
sure.
answer. By all means, you can answer that question again, but I'm going to phrase it a different way. You're moving into a new phase.
Yeah.
And in 5 years or 10 years from now, if you were to look back at what you've done with Western and what you've done as you enter a non-governmental leadership role, what are you hoping you'll be the most proud of?
Oh, boy. Helping to continue to develop the next generation of leaders in a positive way. So setting a positive tone, giving them the tools they need. You know, I'll give an example. I look at our battalion chiefs today in my own fire department. They are so much better prepared for leadership and the complexities of leadership than I ever was at that stage of my career. And I think that's a goal that if I end that, I'll be proud. I think as long as we can continue to advance technology, advance wildfire cohesion across all the agencies, and if we can play a role in that in the Western, bringing people together to create a new mission space with the same mission of putting the fire out and then in the off season mitigating the landscape, keeping our forests healthy. If we can have a good role in that, that is leadership. And you know, if you look at much like the IFC, you have a mantra: lead, innovate, support. Right. And we have that same type of mantra. And I think if we can deliver on that, and I keep the association in a good financial position, which is now my new job, that they're going to evaluate me on the annual. I think if I can leave the association very financially healthy as well, that's a job well done. And I'll turn it over to the predecessor. Right? You know, succession planning, it's interesting. It's already started, and I've been in the role for a day, and I'm already starting to think about
You're already
succession
doing
planning.
it.
Like, who is going to replace me in 5 to 7 years, however long my wife lets me do this before she finally says you've got to be done now for good.
Yeah, you got a little paparazzi by it.
Paparazzi.
Uh,
You know what? So your answer totally speaks to you, as I understand you as a leader, and that is fantastic. I've enjoyed working with you as
Yeah.
Meridian Chief,
yeah.
as Boise Chief, and I'm really going to enjoy working.
So I
with
got to
you as
tell the
Western
story. Do we have
Fire Chief.
time? Tell the
Please
story.
tell it.
How Eric and I first met. Paradise, California, right? And we were blessed enough through Mike McLaughlin setting up and Chief Hawks, who was the Paradise Fire Chief, Cal Fire Division Chief. We got to do a tour pretty closely after that fire burned through. So going to hopefully learn lessons. We had NFPA, IFC, ISO, we had local fire chiefs, we had the Western. I can't remember who else we had. We had
A host of people.
whole bunch of folks. And prior to that, the Western had kind of split off from the IFC's Wildfire Policy Committee. We were doing some work that we just wanted to keep doing. It was a tumultuous time back then. And I'd never met Eric before. And we're on this tour, and we paused to overlook the canyon going down in the Chico. Right? So we were up in Paradise, and we were looking at the canyon, how the fire progressed. Never met Eric before in my life, but he learned reps from the Western. He said, "So tell me about this split we had." And I laugh at that only because I look at where we're at now and the relationship that we have, especially with the Wildfire Policy Committee. They've said it best. There is no difference. It's the same mission. We can do things a little more nimble sometimes, but we are still supporting the grander mission. And that's been fun to watch come back. But we always joke about how we first met.
Standing on the
and where
canyon.
we are today, standing on the
It was
canyon
destiny.
over a chain link fence. If I remember.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna be
Yes.
friends.
Yeah. And we have been
Yeah.
since.
Yeah. Although he keeps texting me, he's like, "Hey, I'm coming to Boise. Let's get together." And then something happens with planes.
It is more real than people
I was
know.
actually told by Eric, "Don't ever travel with me on a plane ever. Don't go anywhere with me because something will happen and I might not get there."
We're going to have lunch in Boise together sometime in the next 2 months.
And we talked about trying to do some wildfire chronicle podcasts in the field.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Be pretty
now-
fun at NIFC, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now
And
that
we could certainly help arrange that. I'm
Yep.
sure
Now that
they'd
my
be
son
happy.
is officially a little bit older, I think we can swing that. We can do that. More,
Deal.
but,
We can make that happen.
We got you.
lunch in Boise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just make sure you get Eric on a different airline
Yeah.
carrier or something.
Maybe I'll drive.
Maybe a bus. Try to put Eric on a bus.
Kevin, close us out.
No, it's been a pleasure, and I just been very grateful and excited about what you're doing, what you're leading, and from a tech perspective, I would love to continue to lean in and support everything that you're trying to do with integrating tech within the Western Fire Chiefs Association. And there's especially at the Technology Summit International that's happening in December. We have a Shark Tank, so we're going to have about 6 startups there that are all pitching, but as well as with the smart firefighting community. I'm fortunately connected to a lot of these early mid-stage companies that are all just hungry, and some of them are doing pilots, and there's a lot from wearables, drones, satellites. And so with your helm with the leadership, I'd love to just continue to make tech listening, tech adoption, tech integration, tech exploration, a key part of what you're doing. So this is my open invitation to please use me as a resource as much as possible.
I love what you're doing with tech, with TSI, with the Shark Tank. It's awesome because that's
Yes.
what we need to be. So
Yeah.
spot on.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure, and hope you guys both enjoy the rest of your time here at FRI, and until next time.
You too,
All
man.
right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you.